This is the concierge, sir.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and March is upon us. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about none other than the most exciting month in basketball, at least, and that is March Madness. So March Madness has come upon Vegas, and for those of you looking to come to Las Vegas the next couple of days, I do have a couple different tips for you to sort of take with you if you're going to be watching any of the games anywhere, a couple recommendations, because we love recommendations here, but also sort of how to make the experience a good one and not one that you just forget right away. So I'm not here to be your mom, but I'm here to sort of like let you in on sort of the secrets of having a really great time in Las Vegas, while also, you know, drinking the entire time that you're here. So this is the March Madness episode of Concierge Confidential. Okay, friends, let's go ahead and dive into it. We're going to just jump right into it, just head on. No recaps from the week. Actually, let's do a little recap. So I did go to Delilah's the other day, just kind of an update. Lots of sports stars there, which was really fun. Saw a couple people like Richard Sherman, Andrew Whitworth, Sean McVay was there. They were there for a party, which was really fun while I was there. Also, had a good time chatting up some people. Really fantastic. Can't say what happened later, but good times. Actually, nothing happened later. It just, they got a number, which is fun. It's always fun to get a number when you're out at the, in the middle of the world. And it was awesome. But overall, had a great experience. Really, really fun. And yeah, that's basically all that happened at Delilah's. It's sort of my update on the week. Did I try anything else out? No, I haven't. But I have to say, I'm really excited to try out the Venetian again. They've finished revamping a lot of their bars, so I'll probably be doing like a walkthrough of the Venetian sometime soon. Just check out the lounges, see what's going on, and that'll be really, really fun. So anyways, let's dive into what you guys came for, and that is March Madness. So for those of you that are maybe from across the pond, March Madness is a basketball event that takes place, most of March into a little bit of April for college basketball. So that's where they have just a weekend filled of basketball action across the board, and it really is fantastic. It's really a fun time in Las Vegas, a lot of energy. It sort of kicks off sort of the summertime and the busy time for Las Vegas. We're done with Super Bowl. We're done with the dead time. And conventioneers are kind of, on their way out. Usually conventioneers are here January through February, but it's time. So March Madness. So March Madness typically takes place Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Those are the basketball days. Thursday is sort of like the kickoff event. Friday is usually the bigger, a little bit busier day, depending on the matchups and all that good stuff as well. And then, of course, Saturday as well. So as we're kind of looking at it, giving you sort of an idea of how much you're going to be paying if you come and watch it at, let's just say, a table or a pool. We won't beat around the bush, guys. We'll talk about Stadium Swim. We'll talk about the sportsbook at Circa, which is really what people really want to know about. So this is sort of like the mecca at this point for sports bettors who still come to Las Vegas. It's not cheap. It's not going to be cheap. Most of the single seats are sold out. Most of those go for, I'm looking online and you can't even get a seat over at the sportsbook. I'll even actually pull it up again. But most of the places, especially for outside, you're looking at for a booth between $3,000 and $5,000, depending on the location, depending whether it's inside or outside. Really just depends on how you booked your trip. So yeah, as I look at it, you can't even buy single seats anymore at the sportsbook. So those might be, you have to purchase when you get there, which it will not be free. It won't be like a first come, first serve for free situation. Definitely going to have to pay. I would say for March Madness, I could honestly seeing it going for, maybe $200 a seat. I think the Super Bowl is around $300. So this is somewhere around that. It's very similar in terms of pricing, but it is very different in terms of the day. So the difference between the Super Bowl and March Madness is that the Super Bowl is one game that happens at 3:00 and ends around 7:00, around that time, about a 4-hour event. March Madness is an all-day event in Las Vegas. It starts around 9:00 in the morning and runs all the way until about 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, sometimes 10, depending on how the late games start. So It is a full day. So it's really important to note, if this is going to be sort of your whole day activity, that you have to read the fine print. That's probably the number one tip that I'm telling everybody out there who's going to be reserving a space or has reserved a space. Make sure you check and see that it says all day. Some of them might say the morning games, which will be noted in terms of how they want to set it up. It's usually like 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. is usually like the morning games, and then afternoon typically indicates 2 o'clock and after. They usually do this with wristbands. If you're at a table, it's much easier for them to track. But most tables require you to get the whole day. So that's just sort of something that's important to note on your reservation. But they still have seats available in their booth areas for Thursday and Friday. Thursday, it's a little bit cheaper. The capacity for those booths are about 6 people, and this actually is across the board, whether you go to Circa or other properties like the Venetian, for example. Although terrible sportsbook, don't go to the Venetian to watch sports. What else is there? The Venetian, New York. I'm terrible. Don't go to New York either. Just spouting off numbers. Resorts World, that's the one that I was looking up at Red Tails. That has a couple different options. You can obviously check over at the Budweiser Beer Park, that has many, many TVs. One of my favorite spots to go look. Also, Jason Aldean's. I'm just sort of thinking off the top of my head, and that'd be a really great option. Actually, kind of a sneaky option. So. I know that they did charge for the Super Bowl. Don't know what the price was for the Super Bowl. That's, on me. But I would still recommend or say that they're probably going to be charging, I would say for booths, they're kind of new in town, so they kind of don't know the pricing. But I would say that they're probably going to be looking at charging between $1,500 and $2,000 for a booth. And again, that usually includes food and beverage included. But again, read the fine print. Really important to note if you're doing a rental fee or if you are actually getting food and beverage minimum. Usually, most places will do food and beverage minimum because you will probably go past it, or it's in your best interest to do that. But if not, they have that money anyways. And remember, when you're booking all this stuff, that you have to add tax and gratuity on top of it. It is auto-grat. It is tax, obviously. So you can't get out of not tipping because it is automatically charged to the card. So usually between 20 and 22%. So keep that in mind. Usually 22% last time I checked. So even if it says it's only $5,000, it's probably going to be somewhere closer to around, probably somewhere closer to $550 after tax, gratuity, all the additions, probably $6,000. So really important to note that, because I was actually looking at this, and if you look at Stadium Swim, to get into Stadium Swim, which I think would probably be your best option if you're at this point, and a group of less than 5, honestly 4, less than 4, I would recommend just do the single event, because if you do like a $3,000 spending minimum for a booth that holds up to 6 people, you're going to be spending at minimum $500 per person. So keep that in mind when you're doing all of the math for these things. You kind of have to figure out, is it in your best interest? So full day general admission to Stadium Swim would be $80. They do not offer half day. That is a whole day thing. $80 admission. Let's see what you get. You get one guest, does not include access to reserved seating, so you will be standing or you have to be in the pool, which is fine. I would recommend be in the pool or have your shoes on because it gets very, very hot. They have put places to stand, which is quite nice. So that was really nice that they did that, which they didn't have before. And they do have other options, so you can do one of their booths. Their booths typically hold up to 10 people, and that usually has a VIP server, so on and so forth. They're beautiful, I have to say. But they do have for the full day for that option, and that would be $3,000. If you do the morning, it's $2,500. And the morning ones are probably where you want to go if you want to get the most bang for your buck. Because for this one in particular at Stadium Swim, morning is 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So it is quite early and goes until about the mid-afternoon. Then you get the primetime games, which is in the afternoon or in the evening, which those would be a minimum $500. So not terrible if you just want to see the afternoon games, but that's from 5 to 11. So just check out. This does take a little bit of strategy on your part depending on what games you want to see. Because if you really want to see a lot of those West Coast nighttime games, maybe you want to do, in the afternoon time between 5 and 11. Which, again, the sun will be down, but it's still a party. But 5 and 11 minimum spend, not terrible. A lot of times, the morning people are just so hammered by 4 o'clock, they're not extending into that day. This does, depend on if you're upper booth, lower booth, all that good stuff. Check out their website. That's the best place to check. They also have like a bunch of different options. They have a 3D map. I like looking at the map. It's probably the best thing to do. The map, just looking at the map, you don't want to be too close to the screens because it is quite an extreme look when you have to look up. It is also quite loud. But most people who go to this thing do not have like hearing problems, so you should be fine. But again, you don't want to be too close. So 8 o'clock. That actually is important to note for my other job. Really important. But that's what I have to say about Circa. I would say that Circa is probably the most economical in terms if you are a single person or if you are a smaller group and you want to find a place that you're able to watch all the games without a lot of hassle. $80 is kind of a steal. And that's very much the going rate for a lot of places. This one's $80 the whole day. Yes, you have to be outside, but it's really fun out there. I would recommend that it's, especially if you're from a cold weather place, like let's just say like Michigan or New York or anywhere in the Midwest or East Coast, I think it'll be a welcome change. I think so. It's important to sort of compare. So I looked at Red Tails, which Red Tails is like one of the places that I like to sort of use as a barometer because they're kind of hidden. So they sort of are hoping for business. And it's, not connected to a sports book, which sports books tend to, sometimes know what they're doing and sometimes don't. Red Tails is more of a nightlife thing, but they do have a lot of TVs, which is quite nice. They are charging $75, and it is a 2-hour max. So when you're comparing $75, 2-hour max, to Circa, where you could be outside all day for $80, Circa's looking a little bit nicer. So I know that a lot of people pump Circa, for their sports book and all that other good stuff. But, in this case, this is actually a pretty good deal. Same thing with Red Tails, that they do have a spending minimum for their booths. It is quite reduced, but you have to read the fine print because that is where it says it is a 2-hour max as well, 2-hour max. So you're probably only going to be able to see like maybe 1 or 2 sessions of the games because the games sort of are tiered. So it's really important to sort of read the fine print. That's really, really important. So those are just a couple of options. Obviously, places that I like to recommend: Budweiser Beer Park, Jason Aldean's. I'd recommend just check it out, look on the website, see what's going on. And then I would also recommend, of course, Circa. Westgate Superbook is always one of the better places to see see sports. They're usually very nice to people walk-in business, which is quite nice. Very old school Vegas. Not many sports books look like Westgate's anymore. A lot of places have turned to having more reserved seating, which people always ask me. People always ask, like, why have we turned, and especially if you're new to sports gambling, you know the difference. But for those of you that have been, coming to Vegas and sports books for a long time, they have this certain look to it. Really big open air areas, big giant TVs, open seating. You sit wherever you want. It's sometimes smoky, sometimes not. And why did this change? And really the main reason that this has changed is because most people who don't know the economics behind sports books, especially in Vegas, because we don't take lots of prop bets, we don't take lots of like side action, although they're getting better at it. Would only bet sides, totals, maybe some futures, but that used to be kind of it. And they didn't make a lot of money. Really, you were breaking a little more than even if like one team won and you took even action. You were breaking just a little bit more than even if the right side won. So it really didn't make that much profit for the casino. It was much more of an amenity than it was an actual like profit space. Now with the huge focus on experience-based tourism or experience-based events, just like movies, these big, giant, single day, single weekend events where we know there's going to be people, that we know there's going to be a demand, this is where they make lots of money, and that is booking these reserve spaces because that's money that goes right into our pocket it's almost free, essentially, because when you count in the food and the beverage and everything else, it never amounts to being more than you think. Because, again, we buy it on margin, or we buy it, at a discount. So really, we are the one, and we're marking it up. So that is why the casinos still make money off of these, these table reservations, because when you look at the profit margin, it actually is a lot better. So that is why they figured out a way to make money off of the sports book, not by the actual gaming part of it, but the actual seating and eventizing of these big giant sporting events. So that is why it's become much more expensive and much harder, honestly, to watch these mega events, which is why I sometimes watch them at home because it's one, I'm single, so it's really hard to find a seat somewhere because they start charging for those seats. So, important to note. Other places, Fontainebleau is really great. Fontainebleau has their sports book. And again, really great is a subjective thing, depending on how your seating is. Sitting at the bar is cool. Kind of hard to see from the bar because they have two giant pillars in the way of the TVs. So sometimes your viewing is limited over at Fontainebleau. I like the bartenders there. It's a nice space if you get in the right seat and you get a booth. They've become much more expensive over there. I think for their type of couches, it's like almost 10 grand. So it is an option. They do have the solo bar, which you get to see like maybe 2 games, especially if you turn around and you can pay for it. But Fontainebleau's, not bad, but it is an option, of course. I always like Bellagio. I think it's a really great space. It's really big, really airy. I like it. You can also check out Park MGM. Park MGM is sort of like a sports book style, sports bar style, which is much more common to a lot of people around the country. They will always, take reservations, and of course, just make sure to check out for their spending minimums as well. I would say going rate across Las Vegas Boulevard and even downtown, $3,000 to $5,000 for a 6-booth table, usually across the board. Another great option, which I always like to recommend because I like the old school type of it, is the Mandalay Bay Sportsbook. It's really big, really airy, lots of open seating. They charge for some of their booths, of course, but I really like their setup and I really enjoy it. Honestly, guys, don't be afraid to stand. Like, this is a big thing. Is like you just kind of have to find a spot, grab a beer, and you might have to stand and watch a game. That's sort of what it's become in Las Vegas. If you don't have, a big group of friends that's going to be able to splurge for a booth, it's really, really difficult. Other sort of like workarounds you can always try over at Beer House. Beer House is really, really great. They have a couple different giant TVs, which is sort of off to the side of New York. I don't have the minimums in front of me for Beer House, but Beer House is really nice. It's open air, so it's really great to get the sun out. You sort of get that, that summer, that spring, that nice spring day. And sometimes these restaurants don't know how to price these big events like sports books do because they just want the business, and this might be a good option for you. So Beer House over at New York, I think would be good. They also have these it's Tom's Urban or Tom's Viewing Bar or Sports Viewing Bar. It's at the New York as well, which me and my dad watched not Super Bowl Sunday. We watched a football Sunday there. And it was great. Again, they're gonna charge you a spending minimum. Sometimes it's like $500 for like those restaurants. But again, you have to look at those sort of tricky options where is it a sports book or is it a restaurant? Restaurants typically require less spending minimums than a sports book would. So just keep that in mind when you are looking at booking, is that restaurants, which usually will do special stuff for these type of events, will charge a little bit, significantly less than what a sports book would charge. So how do you get through the day? So it's a long day. It's starting at between 8 o'clock in the morning all the way until 11 o'clock at night. If you are someone who purchased one of these, booths or tables, I recommend you skip out on the hard liquor because that's the number one way that, one, you're going to spend way more money than you thought you were going to spend, and two, you're going to get way too drunk that you're not going to be able to make it the entire day. So how do you do this? I know some people are not big beer fans, but with the advent of Trulies as well as hard spritzers. I get it. I think I got it right. Those are readily available at most of our day clubs as well as our outdoor pool parties. Those are great options to sort of get you through the day. Including beer, of course, where they do sell beer buckets. You do have to just sort of double check, how many beers come in a bucket. It's usually like a 12-pack. Sometimes it's more. And if you get multiple of those, one, you will definitely hit your spending minimum. It's much easier to gauge, where you're at. And don't be afraid to ask, like, hey, where are we at right now? Like, how much have we spent? Because then that'll be able to let you know, okay, how much more do we need to spend? And how much more are we over? All that good stuff. So don't be afraid to ask. But you want things, especially in groups, to be in large quantities as possible. And you're still going to be able to, you could still order shots if you want. This is my thing. If I were you, and again, if you have all the money in the world, you don't have to do all this stuff, but just go to the bar, and you don't want to buy a bottle. Just go, like if you actually have a booth and you're drinking beers, you're drinking Trulies, drinking whatever, High Noons, go to the bar. And if you want to take shots, take the shots at the bar, because it's going to be very, very expensive for you to purchase a single shot, a single beer, one single beer. They want to do things in quantity. The bottle service girls do not want to get a single beer for you. That is not they are not a regular cocktail waitress, even though they're cocktail servers, however you want to look at them. They don't want to do that. So it's going to charge you, up the wazoo to have to do any of that. So just go to the bar, get your shot there. It's going to be, $18, $20. It's Vegas. But it's much cheaper than paying for a $40 shot that comes from the waitress. So again, that's just the way that I look at it. Also, when you do get a lot of these food and beverage minimums, don't be afraid to eat the food. Eat the food. It's usually not too bad. It's pretty good. It's very much like around the pool type food. So chicken fingers, French fries, onion rings. They can do salads, but I mean, if you're like in a larger group, it's very rare you're going to get a salad. Do things that you can share. Sliders. Don't get a whole burger, because you're going to be outside and you're going to really eat a gigantic burger, and it's going to be hot, and you don't want to do that. But you know what's really great? Get some sliders. Sliders are great little snacks, finger foods. You want to do finger foods at the pool. Do they do wings? They might do wings. I'd have to double check on that, but wings are kind of a tough call too outside. They usually have nachos. Nachos are super, super popular. I don't know how people eat nachos outside because it gets all gross and disgusting, but hey, you do you, boo-boo. But lots of nachos, chicken fingers, French fries. Chicken fingers are funny because they're great across the board at all of the pools. They are also the most expensive thing of any food item that's on the menu that is not caviar. They are usually like $96 for your chicken fingers, but you usually get a good amount. So go ahead and eat all the chicken fingers you want. And guess what? They stay good out for a pretty long period of time, at least most of the day. Also, if you are going to be going out to dinner, I would recommend do not forget making a reservation. That is always very helpful. If you are a group more than 6 people, honestly, it's more than 8 people, you will need a, what do you call it? You need a confirmation form. It's a really tedious process. People hate doing it. Credit card authorization form, that's what it is. And honestly, every time I recommend, okay, well, they need a credit card authorization form, nobody wants to do it. So here's a little tip. If you have a group, this happens only if you are sort of on the cusp of that number. If you are 8 people, maybe even 7 people, if you are between 6 and 8 people, and you're right on the cusp of having to do that, the credit card authorization form, make the reservation for 6 or 7 people. If it allows you to do 7, do 7. And go in and say, hey, we had a person join us. We now have 8 people. They don't want to turn around a party of 8 people, to be honest. But they can't put on the reservation that it's 8 people. But if you walk up to the hostess and say, hey, we had one person join us, we're going to have 8 people instead of 7. Guys, they don't make tables for 7 people. They make tables for pairs or, even numbers. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's how we do tables. Even if it's a big giant round one, you can usually fit in people at that point. It's really, really important to note that. So Honestly, but don't come up and say, hey, we made a reservation for 6 people and now we have 12. That is a completely different story. Does not work in this scenario. It has to be really, very close on, very much on the cusp of going from 6 to 8 people. So again, that's my tip to you. Sometimes you have to finagle things. A really popular one is like if you have 6 people and you make a reservation for 6 people, you won't see anything. But if you make a reservation for 5 people, a lot of times it'll still pop up that you will have a possible reservation. But trying to make these reservations earlier in the day as it gets much harder throughout the evening. If you are not able to make a reservation online and you are going to be going to the place that you're hanging out at, let's just say you are at Circa. This is kind of a bad example because Circa will not have this available. But let's just say you're staying at Circa and you want to eat at Barry's. Let's just say there's 4 of you who want to eat at Barry's. You don't see any reservations online. I always recommend, which most hostesses get to their post for dining restaurants that are only open for dinner time, usually about 3 o'clock. So you want to go to the hostess stand about 3:15, something around that time, and ask. Just be like, hey, I have a group of 4 people, didn't see reservations online, just wondering if you had anything available. This is the thing with March Madness. You get a lot of people, lots of cancellations during March Madness because people get too drunk, they don't go to dinner, they don't have enough people, and you get lots of cancellations. So this is actually a really great time of the year to catch late cancellations to be able to go to a restaurant you might want to go to. Obviously, this might be one of your groups that, is maybe too drunk to go. But again, try to be good about, getting your people there on time because, that's helpful. But I know you're on vacation, so you guys don't care. But it would be nice. So again, if you don't see the reservation online, check in person if you can. Because a lot of times when you go, in person, depending on how the hostess is, you kind of got to feel them out. Sometimes they'll help you out. It just kind of depends, bat your eyelashes and see, how cute you are. But again, that's life. It happens all the time, by the way. Like STK, that always happens. Like I'm like, hey, like I had a reservation for this and I couldn't get it. And they say, well, we can move it for you. And that's all good to go. So again, that's a good little note to remember. I think I covered most of what I wanted to cover. I mean, be courteous in those rooms. I know there's going to be a lot of people in those rooms all together. So just be courteous to the housekeeping staff. That would be very, very nice. But again, being places early really helps. Having, it kind of sounds silly, but power in numbers sometimes helps as well. But, it is what it is. March Madness, just so everybody knows, is 100% a sausage fest. You get lots of guys that come here. It's sort of like Nashville when wedding season's going on, when you have all these bachelorette parties going to one city. Very similar to Las Vegas during March Madness. A lot of dudes. So ladies, if you want attention, this is a great time to visit Las Vegas. But you will get a lot of sort of like Southern gentlemen. They're not always gentlemen, but at least they look like it. Coming to Las Vegas, you get a lot of like father-sons, so you get a lot of, dudes in Las Vegas at that time. So if you're looking for ladies, this may or may not be the best time to come to town. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening to the episode. Hopefully this was helpful. I know it's in the next couple of days, but, if you're coming to Vegas, hopefully you find that. Oh, let's talk about like transportation really quick. Limousines, totally worth it. If you want to do an Uber Black or an Uber, SUV, Uber SUVs are really great options. They're a little bit pricier, but definitely worth like the trunk space. And it's actually like a little bit better to do it that way because if you do a limousine, limousines tend to not have lots of storage space unless you do like a Sprinter or if you do something that's not as like cool as, let's just say, a limo. But they will have the most space. So make sure to check those out. You can also sometimes reserve those at the airport. They haven't done away with those yet. But I would recommend those, on your trip. So yeah, guys, hopefully you guys enjoy your trip to Las Vegas. Again, I kind of signed off already, but we're going to do it again. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Brian_Ortega26. And then you can also follow me at conciergeconfidential_LV and TikTok at Keys to Vegas. So thanks again, everybody. Hopefully you guys enjoy your trip to Las Vegas. If you see me out in town, come up and say hello. But remember, keep it confidential.